So then, if you talk about having the chops, let's just get on to the other one, the other conversation we're going to have, which is overly sieged, underly sieged, properly sieged on Alec Baldwin, who has had an incredibly unique career. I mean, that's kind of the word, that the hot button word of the day when you talk about Alec Baldwin's career is it's incredibly unique. And we'll probably just skip over production development today, even though there's some interesting stuff. But we are getting towards the end of the show, and I do want to finish this conversation. So I think, personally, that Alec Baldwin is properly rated. I think the amount of attention that he's gotten in the later half of his career. Now, you got to remember, this guy was a superstar in the 80s, right? Like late 80s, early 90s, Alec Baldwin is the guy. You talk about Josh Hartnett and Ben Affleck in the early 2000s. Baldwin had that phase. And then it kind of tapered off and fell off, as a lot of these guys do. But then you talk about his comedy resurgence. I mean, yeah, everyone says SNL and him playing Trump is really what was huge, but it was 30 Rock. 30 Rock is what came out, and it was like, oh my God.
This guy's amazing.
He's amazing. He's hilarious. He's winning Emmys. Like, he is so freaking talented. That was the moment that it felt like, okay, so now Alec Baldwin, and now, he just had his roast. So he's gone onto this level of becoming like a Chuck Norris, like becoming just like a icon. I think that he's not underrated, because it's not like he needs more work.
Yeah.
And he's not overrated, because he's great. He really is great, and I love what he does, and I like seeing him pop up in movies like Motherless Brooklyn, just to see that he's still trying to do it as an actor, not just doing like the comedy thing. Not saying that comedy isn't acting, but I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. I think he's properly rated. It's not like people are overcasting him or undercasting him.
Yeah, I'm trying to think where exactly the drop off happens, like where he just goes from being exactly what we're talking about to like the next phase of his career, and it feels like it's sometime right around this movie, honestly. Like, looking at it and remembering him in Notting Hill, he's the asshole boyfriend to Julia Roberts' character in Notting Hill.
Oh yeah,
and he shows up in the hotel room and he's playing an asshole movie star.
Yep,
that is what he's doing, right? It was almost like the worst possible look. Like he's a prick. He cheats on his girlfriend in the movie. Like,
yeah, he's just really bad to her.
He's kind of just playing Alec Baldwin,
right?
And like it's funny. Like it's a little bit of a portal into then what immediately happens.
It's too meta.
He stops being like likable Alec Baldwin. He kind of starts being kind of fuckhead Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if I'm answering the question, I go underrated, because the more I've sort of thought about Baldwin's career over the years, the more I've paid attention. Most of that older stuff that you look at, like, again, in retrospect, some of it seems really big. A lot less of those movies seem like big deals now than they seemed like probably then.
Yeah.
There's only a few that are really significant. Like he's in Beetlejuice,
mm-hmm.
He's in Glengarry, he's in Hunt for Red October, he's in Working Girl. It's like the late 80s, he's like in some pretty big stuff. But a lot of the other stuff, like The Getaway or like Miami Blues, like those aren't really big movies. They were just like dramas at the time that people cared about. People don't care about them now.
But he's always had the opportunity to be in like major movie. I mean, like, you don't just get put in a Scorsese movie just because,
right? And that's, I mean, so what he does in The Departed is a great example of why I think he's so underrated. It's like that he has some comedy.
You don't smoke? You smoke?
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Is it people don't trust a guy with an immaculate record?
I have an immaculate record.
Yeah. Like, he just has his comic timing so dialed in a way that I think most guys that are he's so dynamic in drama and he's so dynamic in comedy, right? Name me a guy that can be a sex icon, can be that kind of masculine in Glengarry, and can poke fun at himself the way that he does in the second half of his career. There's almost no one in history I can think of that is
Val Kilmer.
Incredible. Yeah. And he was masculine. He had the same kind of masculinity. He was really good. But like Baldwin
and he also got Boss Baby. That's huge.
Yeah.
So he's making so much money and getting cast in so much stuff. And Boss Baby has a sequel, right?
I think Alec Baldwin's A-list again.
He's definitely A-list.
Fully A-list again.
He's 100% A-list. So that's what I'm saying is, like, there's these people that kind of transcend the list because of who they are, and like Willie Nelson is a guy that's not A-list, but he's A-list. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
Because of who Willie Nelson is.
Yeah, it's weird. So I would say under sieged is how I feel about Baldwin, because I think he doesn't get enough credit for the fact that like he literally is as famous now as the out of shape older poke fun at himself guy as he was when he was straight up A-list sex icon leading movies guy.
Yeah.
And like that's not something you see very often. Most of those guys who were like the sex icon dramatic lead in the late 80s and the 90s, if they put on a lot of weight and they stop being that guy. They become like a very, very deep supporting character in some ensemble movie. Mm-hmm. And it's Kevin Costner and he's the he's the guy in Hidden Figures that's like championing for the women, right? But he's like the 6th or 7th lead in the movie. That's the kind of role that those guys get.
Right.
And like feels like Baldwin is so much more significant at this age than you would expect him to be. So